Hi, this is Prita Mama from Mystical Motherhood. I have an amazing guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself today, and she's going to teach us some awesome things and tell us all about her new book. Do you want to introduce yourself, Mary?
Sure, I'd be glad to teach. My name is Dr. Mary Duncan, and I have got a brand new book that hit number one last Monday, if you can believe it. So it was a bestseller, brand new, basically on the market, and it's called You Really Can Make a Difference, 7 Strategies Moms Could Use to Support School Readiness for Their Young Child.
And tell me about your background and how you began to write this book and get this expertise and what you can help women listening today.
Oh, that's great. Well, it started about 30 years ago. I had a son that was born almost a month early. And with that, he was born on the cutoff date when school begins. So for him, I was potentially looking at the youngest child and possibly with him being born early, developmental delays. So from just a few months old, I began thinking in my mind, I need to start preparing him for school readiness. Otherwise, he was going to really be struggling with being prepared. So I began researching during his nap times. I would take out some of my early childhood textbooks. I was a classroom teacher, primary grades, taught early childhood as well. And from that, I began creating activities for him. I would write them down, and my thought was, if I have more children, I'll have all these activities ready, and that would be great. Well, I never had any more, but women's groups, churches, different places asked me to come and share with them the activities that I found. And so I began doing that for about 20 years, just going around and sharing with mom groups. Then I realized, you know what? I want to go back to school. Moms deserve the best. So I went back for a master's. Did research on what specifically in the 5 main subject areas children need to know, and how then can I equip mothers to be able to help support that foundation for school readiness with simple activities that they can do around the house. Well, as soon as that was done, my master's professor said, Mary, you need to keep going. And I thought, I can't do that. I can't get a doctorate. Well, there I went. And several years later, I finished up with my doctoral research in early childhood, specifically focusing on activities moms can do to help prepare children for school readiness. So the book that I wrote is what I found out from experience from moms, 30 years experience, and also just research.
So a couple questions come automatically. That's awesome that you did all of that. You should be very proud and happy to help all these women. But I'd love to hear like the 3 top things that, really work for people that they can practically do if they're a working mom and, a stay-at-home mom. Because I know for working moms, it's harder to have that time. And then also another question that comes to mind that you maybe can weave in just happens to be, I get a lot of requests for podcasts, and I never said yes. And I said yes to you like immediately. I wrote you back, and I've never done that actually, really ever. And I hadn't even thought about it, but my daughter I didn't even think of the correlation of my intuition of following through, but she was just diagnosed with likely dyslexia and also ADD. But she's very special. She's very magical. She's like a little fairy, incredibly psychic. All of it, like I know that it doesn't really matter for her. It has nothing to do with what her future will be about. But I caught it so early. But I probably didn't do enough activities with her, but she's also the youngest of her class. I recognized that in the car ride before coming to talk to you. I said, I thought about, her name's India, and she's the youngest of her class. So how do we do it from the, 0 to 5? But then also like, what if it's too late? When is it too late? What can we do afterwards?
Oh gosh, it's never too late. I like I said, my favorite grade to teach was first. I've taught, Well, all the elementary grades. Now I teach graduate school, so I actually teach teachers that have classrooms full of children, and I like to inspire them. So going back to your question, really you can start anywhere. Just start where you're at right now, reading to her. Now with dyslexia, phonics is really important, and the reason I say that is I too have dyslexia.
Okay.
And that was not diagnosed when I was young. But we learn differently. We learn in a different part of our brain for reading. And what I have found is we do work harder. And it does pay off in the end. All the research that I did ended up paying off for the moms that I now serve. Because I dig into what I do, it is hard work that accomplishes things. And I bet your daughter can do that. Creativity is there. We think in more holistic, so that will benefit her in the long run. But for school, I would encourage manipulatives. I would encourage things like when you're adding 1 plus 2, you could have 1 little bear plus 2 little bears. So she visually sees what she is adding so that she can understand that the number 1 means 1 bear. The number 2 means 2 bears. And the reason I say that is because I had a student in first grade that did not understand that concept, which is why I kept going younger and younger and younger, thinking, well, if I can build this foundation, then they're more prepared for the next year. Well, if I build this next grade, then they'll be more prepared. And I finally realized that it's when they're at home, when we are moms and we're the first teacher in our child's life. So there are specific things that we can do with our young children while they're still at home. And my goal is 9 to 15 minutes a day. 9 to 15 minutes. That being, anybody can do that. As a working mom, we can do that. As a stay-at-home mom, we can do that. It can be broken up in 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. Another 3 minutes at another time, whether it's getting ready in the morning, reading before they go to bed, as they're playing in their bath water. It's just a matter of adding things into their day during routine times of the day, using things we have around the house. In other words, I'm not advocating going out and spending a fortune on toys. It's the conversations that we have with our children. It's the problem solving that we're able to ask that helps them to think in that higher thinking skills. When we are at the grocery store and we are walking through the vegetable line and our child's in the cart and we talk about which of these vegetables here is green, and then help showing them which one to pick that's green. And that's just done. That's 20 seconds. And yet it's just part of the day. So it's not like we send our child over here for 3 hours to plan something, because that's not realistic. Because a child's attention span, and I cover this more in the book, that a child's attention span is 3 minutes times their age. For example, if your child is 2 years old, their attention span would be 6 minutes. So if your child is 4 years old, again, we times that times 12, or to equal 12. So realistically, to be able to hold your child's attention span for 2 or 3 minutes, that's great. When you look at a book, and when I say look at a book, if you have a child that's 2 or 3 years old sitting on your lap, you won't have a chance to read through the whole story and them to sit mesmerized for every page. That's a rare child. But realistically, you may choose 5 pages that have pictures of things that they remember, like a kitty, a dog, baby. You point out those things in the book, and what you're doing is you are labeling their environment and you are building their literacy skills so that when they go to school, they will be able to understand more words, and their literacy vocabulary will be more developed. I can see you're ready for another question.
I'm just thinking, so when you've been working with moms, like what are the common what are the common issues that they've, like come to you for? What's like, I know, because the dyslexia one, that's really great to hear. I know that everyone's born with what they're supposed to be born with to do what they're here to do, right? Exactly. But what about, what other issues have you seen with moms come up that are specifically, you see them over and over and over again?
Yes. I guess just the thought of realizing, is there something that I can do today that can help my child in the future? Is there anything I can do? And let me give you an example. Okay, you're in the kitchen and you finish with cooking all the eggs, and you have an empty egg carton. And you have a jar on the side with large white marshmallows in it. And you take out 12 marshmallows. You help your child to see that you can put one marshmallow in each of the containers, the egg carton. What you're learning is some of the pre-math concepts of one-to-one correspondence. In other words, only one marshmallow will fit into one part of the container. So they're building understanding of the one-to-one correspondence, or just a basic pre-math activity. Other things like I talked about was literacy, science things. This is really fun. If you do something like, okay, bathtub, if you take various Tupperware containers, cottage cheese lids, an assortment of sizes, and then a handful of pennies. And you can ask your child, how many pennies do you think we can put on top of this lid before it falls over? And, you're washing their hair and cleaning and doing what we need to do as moms. And they are trying to see how many pennies that they can put on top. Okay, so let's say they have a small one and they can put 10 pennies on it. And you say, all right, this next circle is larger. Do you think we can put more pennies on that? Or do you think we can put less pennies on that? Again, you're building the vocabulary, more, less. And they're starting to see bigger, smaller, and that there is a difference. So the book and the activities that I share are common things we can do during routine times of the day. It's not something that you have to be highly skilled at. It's not something that is difficult, we all have pennies. We all have plastic, lids, because if you keep things or recycle things. I didn't have a lot of money to work with when my son was small. And so I just used what I had around the house, which is where all the ideas came from. And so now in December, I'm looking at launching a second book, and that book will contain over 1,000 ideas for moms to be able to just read age-appropriate activities in the 5 main subject areas. But this first book basically talks about how long is a child's attention span, when is the best time for teachable moments, because there's cycles of a child's day. What activities can I do? If my child is 3 years old, what activities could I do in pre-math? I talk about bonding. I talk about the brain and how we learn. And then specifically where we as moms impact the brain.
Can I ask, as you're saying that, what are the times of days that are better? Like, I know I don't function as well at night. Are they going to function? Is it per child, or is it?
Yes. Excellent question. It does. That's where we become, as moms, we become a student of our child. We find out what their strengths are. We find out what their favorite color is. My son's favorite color was orange. So if I was to introduce a new activity, I would find something orange to use to introduce that activity. It would be something that would draw him in sooner or quicker because it started off with something that he enjoyed, which was orange. Okay, so the time of the day, depending on if your child has just awakened from a nap, they are alert mentally, but their body is not fully engaged with activity. So that would be a good time to read to your child. And again, you've got to read your child's body language. Are they high energy or are they more mellow? So during the mellow times, And I specifically list out things that you can do. That would be an example as they get a little bit older. Coloring, learning about markers, putting puzzles together, learning to use scissors, as you have them close to you, or again, markers, paper with no lines on it. That way it doesn't force the child to stay within the lines, but it allows for creativity as they're trying to make those little fun letters to start with. Okay, so for big muscle activities, it would be things like the younger years, they could pull a laundry basket behind them as they're learning to walk around, or pushing something. Large muscle activities would be climbing in play equipment, riding a bike, doing things outside where they have to use big muscles, where they want to get rid of a lot of energy. So yes, there are times of the day for different things.
What about for people that have more than one child? Mm-hmm. And each child's very different. So like one that's like type A and another one that's not, and one that's like really good. How do you manage the self-esteem of kids that, they look up to their older brother or sister and then they create a complex? Because does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I do address that a little bit. It's building your child's self-esteem. And what I try to focus on, when you have an older child, it's important to be able to have the little one, either, if you have an opportunity to have them in for a nap or playpen or something like that, where they can be corralled or not involved so much with the child if they're putting a puzzle together. And that allows you some one-on-one time. And again, this can be 2 to 3 minutes. And then the other child may start fussing, you pick them up, and then you're ready to do something with them. But it's weaving them into your day where we're interacting with them, asking them questions. I've got a video on my website. It's called Tools for Motherhood, which is the website, toolsformotherhood.com. And in the video, it talks about the 5 main key points to keep in mind when doing teachable moments. And, things I talk about are squatting down at their level, gentle touch, the tone of our voice, eye-to-eye contact. And I give examples of those as well. So going back to, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I like that, getting down on your knees. I remember I have a memory from childhood, because my mom's an early education teacher, or she was, yeah. And I said, I only remembered my teacher's skirt, a polka dot skirt. And she's like, that's because she never got down on her knees and talked to you. So you only saw her polka dots. And I don't remember what she looked like. It was kind of like a cartoon when they'd have the teachers talking and you see the polka dot skirt. And I now get on my knees a lot, talk to my kids. But this is kind of like an different kind of question. So there is, I've read a lot of books about ancient ways of parenting. So in tribal societies, they would do only adult activities. And then the children would, have to like almost adapt to the adult world. And in this new world we're creating, it's almost like a helicoptering world of parenting, like let's give them so many classes, and my kid's going to go to this class and this class and this activity and this activity. And I have always kind of, I do activities with my kids, but I've raised my children to be in the adult world. They're still kids, but like they traveled around the world with me. They can go to nice restaurants. They can hold themselves in a train. You know what I mean? They can be on an airplane, but they're also still children, and I let them play. But how do you balance between like the type A mom that really wants to do activity after activity? Because I can just see like people could take your book and then make it kind of helicopter, with the wrong word, or how do you have a balance between those two ways of parenting? Like the tribal way of like the child becomes a part of the adult community.
Yes.
Versus.
Okay. That's a wonderful question, because what we realize is play is a child's work. For you and I, we've got to make dinner, whether we're stay at home or whether we have a job outside the home, because we work no matter what we do. But For children, work for them is play, and that's where they learn the most. Curiosity. They're curious about what happens when baking soda is added to vinegar. And suddenly, there's bubbling over. Or what if you have a glass of water and you add 4 drops of yellow and 1 drop of red? Oh my goodness, it turned orange. How did that happen? Just entering their world and having fun. With children, with children, our goal is to allow opportunities for them to play, because play is how those pegs of things that they're learning, for example, pre-math, pre-science, pre-social studies, pre-writing and pre-reading, the foundations that we're building, are built through use of the 5 senses: taste, touch, hear, smell, and see. As moms, when we provide opportunities for our children to engage in activities, like we go out right now with fall and leaves, we pick a bunch of leaves and then we sort out all the red leaves and the yellow leaves. We're helping them to organize things. We're playing with them a little bit, but yet they're able to continue on with organizing if they're around 4 or 5. Again, understanding they are children, they do learn differently, and providing opportunities where their curiosity is brought to the surface, and then they're able to experiment with their world and learn more about it.
And when do you think it's too early to have them do chores?
Oh,
when is a good idea to bring in chores? Because I'm finding that I'm getting a lot done by assigning things.
Yes. Chores allow children to feel part of the family. Matter of fact, the second book, I even break it down into ages and specific things that they can do with chores. Now, with my son, what I did is I had chores and I paid him with pennies. And for each job, we'd count out maybe picking up the trash from the trash can in the bathroom and dumping it into the kitchen trash can. He earned 2 pennies with that. And then at the end of the week, we counted up how many pennies did he earn. That happened to work well with him. Another time he was sick and he did chores and he earned stickers, and for a sticker page. And so you have to, I guess, just decide what works best with your child and adapt it from there.
And what do you think about, how do we assess how our child learns best? Like, how do we know, like, they learn by writing, or they learn by hearing, or they learn by sight? Like, what would give us the best signs that, because I remember I learned to read because my grandma put up all of these, which I wouldn't do in my house because I'm really into design.
Yeah.
But my grandma filled her whole house up with posters.
Sure.
And then I began to learn the songs from the posters, and then I began to read that way. And that's I remember that really worked for me. I don't know how she knew that. I don't know why she knew that, but she just knew I needed that. Yes. So tell me, is it intuitive, or is it
Well, you are, as each of us mothers have our children home with us for the first 5 years, we are going to know our child better than anyone else will. Teachers are going to have our child in their classroom, but they only have them for 1 year. And when we have our children in the classroom and they go off to school, we still are going to know our child very well. And the more we can bond with them and learn their learning styles while they're young, the better we can help our child as they get to school and really in life, because our goal is to not only be a lifelong learner for ourselves, but to help equip our children to be lifelong learners. And we as moms, my son is 33 now, and we never stop being moms, and they still call and ask questions. And I guess that's the privilege of life. But how will we ever know? It's something that you don't know instantly. It is something that you experiment with. For example, some children may pick up on rhymes and poetry and finger plays and songs. Others may learn better through here's an example, spelling words. Let's just look at that, for example, once they get to school. If you know that your child enjoys smells and tastes and certain colors, then once they get to school, and I used to have first graders, you could, and I would have them practice their spelling words. You could get out a cake pan, just a rectangular one, and a box of powdered Jell-O. Open up the package, sprinkle it in, and as your child, you shake it out and it's all flat, and you have the word cat. That's one of your spelling words, let's say. Then your child can take their finger and you can show them how they can push in the Jell-O, and it'll make the C, and then an A, and then a T, and they're smelling the powder as they're making the letters. Their finger is tasting it as they're going. Their taste, touch, hear, smell, and see. The more organs, the more senses that they're using, the more it imprints in different parts of the brain, so that when that spelling test comes, then they're able to retain and recall those words. Again, focusing on the color that they like and perhaps the flavor that they like best.
That's genius.
Oh, thanks.
That's like really smart. I would have never thought that. Like I would have not even like known, because I just like go on Amazon and I buy some flashcards and then I pray I can get them to stay still for 7 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I do. And then if I get through that, I'm like, yeah, I did my homework, or whatever. And I don't know. So that's a great one. I like that one because one of my kids really likes sweets.
There you go.
And so you could do that with cooking, or you could do that with different things when you're cooking, and you could, rather than TV, you just, have them watch you put in cups, like things like that. That's cool.
Exactly. Okay, here's another one. If you're cooking, and let's say that you're making macaroni, let's say a goulash or something like that. Some of the macaroni noodles fall over on the side of the counter. So your little one is standing there, just humming away, just, talking to you. And you can say, let's play a game. And so for the next 3 minutes, you can ask your child, all right, let's just have a story problem. Let's put 3 macaroni noodles on this napkin right here. And this napkin's we're going to pretend this is a lily pad, and these macaroni noodles are caterpillars. And let's say they're tadpoles or frogs. Let's call them frogs. All right, so lily pad and frogs, and you've got 3 on there. And you can say, all right, we've got 3 frogs that are having so much fun. There are 2 other little frogs that want to come over and sit on the lily pad with them. All right, let's bring them over. Now we've got 3 here and we've got 2 here. How many do we have altogether? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're touching them as you're counting them. What you've just shown them is a story problem. Story problems are hard because they are they're concepts that are not tangible. Maybe they're not able to move them. But if we can show them as a young child that story problems can be fun because there's a story involved with it, we play the game for maybe a minute and a half, and suddenly that story problem, I can do that. Okay, so let's say that little group of 5 now have one of them go home for dinner. Well, if one of them goes away, how many do we have left? I don't know. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 that are left. And it's just going back and forth like that. Having learning become a way of life, having learning become something that's fun, and creating that thought of anticipation for learning and preparing for school.
This is all really, really helpful. Like, I'm so appreciative of all the work you've done throughout your life. I'm trying to think of other questions I may have. What do you do with other learning disabilities? Like if it's not dyslexia or, here's some different scenarios. Like what about a mom, where there's problems in the house or something. Like I got to be home with my kids, but a lot of moms have to go right back to work. And let's say that mom has to give that child to a nanny all day long, 40 hours a week. And we don't know the education level of this nanny, or, maybe she's a teenager and that mom is just doing the best she can do, right? What can we give to like a nanny or someone else's? Because there's a lot of moms that can't be home with their kids. What can they like? Can they give their nanny the book and say, do these assignments? Are there any YouTube videos that you would like recommend that the nanny could do? Like things like that would help moms.
That's a great question. Matter of fact, my research was on teen mothers and their perceptions of increasing literacy in their young children. And, I could tell you all sorts of stories, but what I found out from these young moms was what they were wanting to be able to learn. From what I gathered from research and from the different committees that I've been on and boards, national as well as state ones, I've found that, it's easy to work with middle class mothers that are stay at home because the data is good. But that doesn't help those mothers that are teen moms or that are from a lower socioeconomic level or those that have nannies. So the book basically provides YouTubes. I do have YouTubes that are available through the website. You can see those. And what I do is I focus on a specific age and specific activity that they can do. The book, yes. Matter of fact, in the back part of the book, it lists out specific ages. And then this one is called Fishing for Letters and age 4 to 5. Pre-writing, that's the goal, materials that you need, and then what's specific to do. So if you've got a nanny, then that would be something that you could look through, or you could watch some YouTubes. You could gather some of the materials. I would keep it in a baggie, and then I had a plastic container with different activities in it. And depending on how much time I had, I would play certain games throughout the day. But the goal is the bonding that the mom can have with the young child while they're interacting. Mm-hmm. And that also helps prepare for that social emotional side of the child as well.
So basically a mom that has a nanny and that kind of a situation, she can create this little plan and tell, because I feel like when I have a nanny, I have to tell them exactly what to do or nothing gets done. Yes. You have to say, okay, for 30 minutes, you need to do this at some point in the day and it has to be done. Or, maybe 25 minutes here and 25 minutes in the afternoon in between naps. I want you to do these 2 activities and let me know how it progresses. And maybe you rotate 3 to 5 activities a week, and then they progress and graduate, right?
I think that's fabulous. Matter of fact, what I did, you and I think a lot alike, because when my son was small, I posted it on the refrigerator. I had a calendar. I had a week at a glance, and I had 1, maybe 2, depending on how old he was and how long his attention span was. I listed 1 or 2 activities that my goal was to achieve for that particular day. And by the end of the week, if I was able to get through all of them, great. So I think I like your idea, and it sounds like what we were both thinking the same way.
Great. Any other things you could think of telling the listeners, like before we go, or ways that they can get a hold of you, or do you work privately, and where do you teach, things like that?
Well, I do teach graduate school for your college, but my passion is moms, because of all the things that I've ever done in life. Being a mom is my greatest accomplishment. That's the legacy that we live behind. It's not the houses, it's not the clothes, it's not the car, which is all great to have, but it's the kids we leave behind for the next generation. So keeping in mind that even a few minutes a day is a life changer for our children. And remember, it can be with simple things from around the home, 2 to 3 minutes a day, with your goal being overall 9 to 15 minutes a day. If you can do that, then that would be, I would propose that for the goal. YouTubes, yes, you can find those on the website, toolsformotherhood.com. And I've got several books that are going to be launching out. Of course, the first one just came out a couple weeks ago. And like I said, it hit #1 bestseller in several categories within the first 5-6 days. And I was thrilled with that kind of positive outcome. The next book is called Tools for Motherhood, Resource Guide, 1,000 School Readiness Activities Moms Can Use with their young child 0 to 5. And that is 30 years worth of research and gathering of ideas from young moms and just things that I used. So
that's great.
Anyway, thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate being with you. And we have a lot in common, it sounds like.
I really appreciate your work. And thank you very much for coming.
I appreciate it.
thankful for today. I'm glad we had this session today because, again, you put a lot of things in perspective, things I still have not thought about, things that are in your book that I probably have not gotten to yet. But it's just talking to you about this and, I don't know, telling me something that I didn't even know it could be. I learned how to open myself up more and that I don't have to live with the story that I've written before. I can change it. I just didn't, like I said, I didn't have a guide on how to go about releasing these things that are keeping me stuck. But now there's a way that I can change it around, change the globe.
And yeah, just to repeat, so mystical motherhood, Kundalini yoga will take you so far, but it only takes you halfway up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really good way to get a lot of energy, and it's an amazing thing. Now, I don't think it takes you all the way up the mountain. I think that the heart does. Yes. And I think that mind-based meditation practices, once you actually get to the level of the heart, but you have to clear the mind enough and you have to clear the story enough to even know what the level of the heart is. Now, I'm going to get a lot of shit for saying that, but it's true. Like until you can, and like, we're just not ready on a heart level to get there, but like the next work I do. So I want you to do those meditations,
okay,
but know they have their own limitations and there's not just one road. But but to get into that heart is I keep on repeating back into the elements. You have to go into nature.
Mm-hmm.
You have to spend time alone because it's in that time alone that you'll actually gain your self-esteem.
That's right.
You have to walk. You have to it's like dedication back to self, love for self, and that generating that self-love all the way from the little girl up to now, whatever form that is like choosing you, then your environment responds to that. Your people and your son and your baby will respond to that internal change.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that happening. I can see that. Thank you so much.
So work whatever meditation feels good.
Yes.
But also do those other practices.
Mm-hmm. I will do that. I will. Next week, I plan on starting on a new one in the book. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it now. Like I'm very, very, very excited to do all of these. And
cool.
I don't know. The last one I did felt really amazing.
Okay,
so
good.
I'm ready.
Okay. Reach out with any questions. Okay.
I sure will.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.